Okay, hopefully before you start this video, you have tried the proofs on your own. We're going to go over them and then go from there. Okay, so on the first proof, when we start, I gave you the equation. Remember, the equation is always given because you have to accept that something exists before you can go solving it from there. So from step 1 to step 2, they distributed. And so that's why reason 2 is a distributed property. From step 2 to step 3, they subtracted 2 from both sides. So reason 3 is a subtraction property of equality. From 3 to 4, they added, I totally misread that. From 3 to 4, excuse me, they divided both sides by 4, which is the division property of equality. But then our final problem, they prove has to be an exact match, and that is not an exact match. So to flip it, we do the symmetric property. Okay, on number 2, it is given the angles are complementary, and when it's complementary, you should know or draw on the picture that that is 90 degrees. And so the reason that we can do statement 1 is not because it was given, it's because they told us that we had complementary angles. So we did the definition of complementary angles. That's how we were able to put that together. Then going from step 1 to step 2, instead of writing DBC, they put 3x plus 18. Instead of writing ABD, they did 6x. And so when you replace something that's equal, that's substitution. From line 2 to 3, they combined the x's, so that's combined like terms, CLT, combined like terms. From step 3 to 4, they subtracted 18 from both sides, so that's the subtraction property of equality. And then from 4 to 5, they divided both sides by 9, which is the division property of equality. All right, let's turn to the back now and talk about these system ones that I know that people struggle with. So step 1, when we do these, is find two congruent angles. Okay, so remember, when we do these and we have parallel lines cut by a transversal, the 4 acute angles are all congruent, okay? And the 4 obtuse angles, oops, sorry, are all congruent, okay? And if you have one of each, then they add to 180. So if we're looking for two angles that are congruent, we want two angles that are both yellow or two angles that are both blue. And the only option I got are the two yellow ones. So my first equation I'm going to write is negative 19x plus 6y equals 45. Okay, out of that, I want to number that. Okay, step 2. Find two angles that equal 180. That means you need most times a linear pair. And right here, we have a linear pair. And we know they add to 180 because we got an acute and obtuse, a yellow and a blue. So my second equation is going to be negative 17x minus 42y plus 45, because I need both of them. Here's one, here's the other. I need both to equal 180. Okay, step 3, write them in standard form. Okay, well, equation 1 was in standard form. Negative 19x plus 6y equals 45. Equation 2, though, is not in standard form. The x's are okay, but we need, and the y's, but we need to get that 45 on the other side. So 180 minus 45 is going to give us 135. All right, now we need to eliminate the x's and y's. Okay, and then the last step is to solve. Okay, so we want to eliminate the x's or y's. Well, x's might be tricky trying to figure out what least common multiple of that is, but with the y's, we can make them both 42. And I can do that by multiplying this top equation by 7. So if I take 19 times 7, that's going to give me negative 133x. And then 6 times 7 is positive 42y. And 45 times 7 is 315. Now I can add these together. So negative 133 and negative 17, they're the same sign. So I'm going to add and keep the same sign. So I get negative 150. And then 135 plus 315 gives me positive 450. Oops, I forgot my x. Apologize for that. Then do 450 divided by negative 150, and that gives me x is negative 3. Okay, now that I've got x, I need to plug it in and find y, and I can plug it into any equation I want. I'm going to choose this top one because it's simple and straightforward. So I have negative 19, plug in negative 3 for the x, plus 6y equals 45. And negative 19 times negative 3 is going to give us positive 57 plus 6y equals 45. Subtract 57 from both sides, so I get 6y equals negative 12, and so y equals negative 2, and we're done. Okay, but remember when you're doing them, follow these steps each time and you'll be okay. All right, last thing, we have parallel and perpendicular and through 2 points. So remember when it's parallel, the slopes are the same, but if it's perpendicular, they're the opposite reciprocal, which means you've got to flip it and change the sign. Okay, but this first one says parallel. So because it's the parallel, the slope is the same. So we're going to use negative 2/3. This minus x we don't use. We'll use this point. So when I write in point slope form, I'm going to have y minus y1, which would be 2, equals my slope, negative 2/3 times x minus negative 12 would be plus 12. First thing, distribute. Y minus 2 equals negative 2/3 x. A negative times a positive is a negative. And then we do 12 divided by the 3 on the bottom. So 12 divided by 3 is 4 times the 2 on top is 8. And we've already dealt with a sign, so we didn't have to deal with that anymore. Okay, add 2 to both sides. So I get y equals negative 2/3 x minus 6. And that's in slope-intercept form. To standard form, the x's have to go on the left. So we get 2/3 x plus y equals negative 6, but it's not in standard form yet because we haven't cleared the fraction. So we have to multiply everything by 3. So that gives me 2x, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, times 2 is 2, plus 3y equals negative 18. Okay, on number 5, it just says through those 2 points. So to get it point slope form, you need a point and a slope. Well, we've got points, but we're missing the slope. So I'm going to have to find the slope. So that's going to be 5 minus negative 1 over 10 minus 6. This is plus a positive, so this is going to give me 6 over 4, but always reduce it. And when I reduce it, that gives me 3/2. And then I can pick either point I want. I'm going to pick this point, but if you pick 10, 5, that also works. So when I plug it in, I have y minus a negative 1, so y plus 1 equals 3/2 times x minus 6. We're going to distribute, so I have y plus 1 equals 3/2 x. 6 divided by 2 is 3, times the 3 on top would be 9, and because it's a positive times a negative, it's a negative. Get y by itself, subtract 1. So I have y equals 3/2 x minus 10. And then to get it to standard form, I need the x's on the left. So I have negative 3/2 x plus y equals negative 10. But I'm not quite in standard form because I haven't cleared the fraction. So I'm going to look at the only denominator I have, which is 2, and multiply that equation by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1 times the negative 3 gives me negative 3x. 2 times y is 2y, and 2 times 10 is negative 20. Okay, you need to turn this review in for points, and then the remainder of your time is to be spent working on your test review. Remember to check your answers in Google Classroom and be ready for your test next class.